Before red carpets and Instagram fame, Hollywood's golden era was already soaked in scandal. From Fatty Arbuckle's manslaughter trials to Ingrid Bergman's exile over an affair, the glamour often masked chaos. Judy Garland's studio-driven addiction and Marilyn Monroe's alleged entanglements with the Kennedys only scratched the surface. In this video, we're diving into 20 of the most explosive and hidden scandals from the 1920s to 1950s that studios tried hard to erase from memory. 1. The mysterious death of William Desmond Taylor, 1922. On a chilly February morning in 1922, the motion picture community awoke to news that would send tremors throughout Hollywood. William Desmond Taylor, a highly regarded film director, had been found shot to death in his Los Angeles bungalow. According to contemporary reports in the Los Angeles Times, Taylor's body was discovered by his valet, Henry Peavy, who rushed outside in panic, attracting neighbors and onlookers. Despite intensive investigations, which included the questioning of numerous Hollywood figures, the killer's identity remained elusive. Suspicion fell heavily on actress Mabel Normand, due to her close friendship with Taylor. He was one of her strongest supporters in overcoming her personal struggles. And also on young star Mary Miles Minter, who allegedly harbored unrequited affections for him. Police records from the era show that over 300 individuals were interviewed, yet contradictory witness accounts and tampered evidence impeded progress. One particularly mysterious element was the pile of Taylor's personal letters, which vanished almost immediately after his death, fueling conspiracy theories about blackmail or hidden affairs. A 1930s memoir by silent film actor King Baggett further speculated on the involvement of powerful studio executives, who allegedly orchestrated cover-ups to protect their stars from scandal. Decades later, books such as A Cast of Killers by Sidney D. Kirkpatrick re-examined the evidence, suggesting potential motives ranging from romantic jealousy to organized crime entanglements. However, no definitive conclusion has ever been reached, and Taylor's murder remains one of early Hollywood's most perplexing unsolved cases to this day. 2. Fatty Arbuckle's manslaughter trials, 1921. Bright lights and roaring applause surrounded Roscoe Fatty Arbuckle in 1921, but the same year ushered in a scandal that would eclipse his fame. Renowned for his comic genius in silent films, Arbuckle hosted a weekend party at San Francisco's St. Francis Hotel over Labor Day. During the festivities, an aspiring actress named Virginia Rapp fell gravely ill, later dying of peritonitis caused by a ruptured bladder. Contemporary newspaper accounts, such as those in the San Francisco Chronicle, seized upon rumors that Arbuckle had assaulted Rapp, sparking nationwide outrage. Official charges of manslaughter soon followed, and the studios were quick to distance themselves from the scandal. Court transcripts detail 3 separate trials. The first 2 ended in hung juries, while the third resulted in Arbuckle's acquittal. Despite the final jury issuing a written statement proclaiming his innocence, the public's appetite for scandal was insatiable, with tabloid headlines casting him as a moral pariah. Hollywood, under pressure to restore its wholesome image, blacklisted Arbuckle's films, and even though the ban was lifted a year later, his reputation never fully recovered. Biographers have noted that the studios, desperate to protect their box office returns, often steered negative press directly toward Arbuckle, exacerbating the public's vilification of him. In an era when gossip magazines flourished, Arbuckle's ordeal served as an early and potent example of how swiftly Hollywood's star system could turn against its own, leaving him a cautionary tale of how a single event could upend an illustrious career. 3. Clara Bow's personal affairs. High-energy performances and a vivacious screen presence made Clara Bow the embodiment of the flapper spirit, yet her off-screen personal life generated relentless whispers. In the mid-1920s, movie magazines like Photoplay and Motion Picture showcased her as the definitive it girl,
Hello, Larry. How are
capturing
you?
the carefree
Hello.
modern woman.
May I
Despite her popularity, she battled rumors of multiple intimate liaisons and extravagant Hollywood parties that piqued the tabloids' interest. According to accounts found in David Stenn's biography, Clara Bow, Runnin' Wild, the actress faced an onslaught of fabricated stories, many perpetuated by studio publicity departments eager to exploit her wild child persona for box office draw. Yet these very tales often evolved into malicious gossip, challenging the perception of her professionalism. One recurring rumor claimed she entertained entire college football teams, a salacious accusation that re-emerged in scandal sheets and was later refuted by journalists who dug deeper. Studio heads, particularly Third B.P. Schulberg at Paramount, took advantage of Bow's willingness to project a lively, carefree image, but worked equally hard behind the scenes to keep potential scandals under wraps. Memoranda from Paramount's legal department in the late 1920s document extensive efforts to quash unauthorized stories, indicating that hush money was sometimes paid to disreputable columnists. Bow, known to be sensitive to public opinion, reportedly suffered emotionally from the onslaught, leading to periods of severe anxiety. Despite the turbulence, she continued delivering box office hits throughout the late 1920s, ultimately exemplifying both the triumphs and tribulations of Hollywood's brash, modern age. 4. Joan Crawford's alleged pornographic film. Few Hollywood transformations have been as dramatic as the one experienced by Joan Crawford, who rose from humble beginnings to become one of the most powerful actresses in the industry. But lurking beneath her polished image was a persistent rumor that she had appeared in a pornographic film before securing her big break. Early 1930s gossip columns, especially the unabashed Confidential magazine, fanned the flames of speculation, claiming that studio bosses spent thousands of dollars buying and destroying copies of the alleged reel. Biographer Donald Spoto wrote in Possessed, "The life of Joan Crawford, that the origins of this rumor might trace back to Crawford's earliest years, when she was still known as Lucille Le Sueur and danced in chorus lines, occasionally participating in risque publicity stunts. Industry insiders, including producer Harry Raff, were said to have vehemently denied any film existed, but the rumors persisted, amplified by Crawford's meteoric rise to stardom. Some suggested that her rival actresses fed the press salacious details to tarnish her reputation, though no concrete proof ever emerged. In an attempt to quash the allegations, Crawford herself dismissed the claims as libelous fabrications, reminding the public that she had been under contract with MGM by the time she gained any real visibility. Researchers who have combed through MGM's legal archives have yet to uncover definitive evidence, leaving the claims in the realm of Hollywood legend. Regardless of whether the film existed, the rumor itself contributed to Crawford's enduring mystique and underscored the industry's appetite for scandal. 5. Loretta Young's Secret Child, 1935. A seemingly wholesome image defined Loretta Young's career, but behind that angelic facade was a carefully concealed secret. During the 1935 filming of Call of the Wild, Young reportedly fell for her co-star Clark Gable, a union that resulted in the birth of a daughter, Judy Lewis. At the time, Gable was married to Maria Langham, and Young's devout Catholic upbringing stood in stark conflict with the notion of bearing a child out of wedlock. According to the 1960s autobiography of Judy Lewis, Uncommon Knowledge, the lengths to which the studio system and Young went to hide the pregnancy were extraordinary. she temporarily disappeared from the public eye, attributing her absence to a lengthy European holiday. Once the child was born, Young staged an elaborate adoption scheme, briefly placing Judy in an orphanage and then adopting her to sidestep scandal. Studio memos from as early as 1934 reveal a flurry of activity surrounding hush-hush inquiries, legal advice, and carefully coordinated press statements. Columnists such as Luella Parsons and Hedda Hopper, who were often on the studio payroll, kept the story under wraps in exchange for exclusives about Young's upcoming projects. Despite the secrecy, the resemblance between Gable and Judy became a subject of speculation among close associates. Although Loretta Young remained guarded about the situation throughout her lifetime, her private correspondences, made public decades later, hinted at the internal moral battle she faced. The entire affair not only illustrated the extreme measures Hollywood took to protect its stars, but also highlighted the intense scrutiny that major names endured. 6. Errol Flynn's statutory rape charges, 1942. In the early 1940s, Errol Flynn epitomized swashbuckling allure, admired for his devil-may-care performances in films like Captain Blood and The Adventures of Robin Hood. However, scandal erupted in November 1942 when two teenage girls, Betty Hansen and Peggy Satterlee, accused the star of statutory rape. Court documents from the Los Angeles County Archives reveal how Flynn's legal team argued that the encounters were consensual and that the women had misrepresented their ages. Nevertheless, the tabloid press seized on every salacious detail, with columns by Hedda Hopper and Luella Parsons turning public curiosity into a full-blown media circus. Flynn's flamboyant lifestyle, replete with yacht parties and late-night gatherings, only stoked the public's imagination. Studio executives at Warner Brothers initially feared that the sixth scandal would destroy their valuable leading man's career, pouring resources into private investigators and high-powered lawyers. Forensic evidence and contradictions in the accuser's testimonies became pivotal, and ultimately, Flynn was acquitted in January 1943. Yet even as he walked free, the phrase "in like Flynn" gained currency in American slang, indicating the scandal's lingering impact on his image. Some historians, including those writing for the Journal of American Culture, note that the case reflected shifting moral values in wartime America, exposing Hollywood's vulnerability to public backlash. While Flynn continued to work in films afterward, his once untarnished star power never fully returned to pre-trial glory. The incident remains a defining chapter in the tension between celebrity culture and societal norms. 7. Ingrid Bergman's affair with Roberto Rossellini, 1949. Hollywood's darling, Ingrid Bergman, found herself at the center of a transatlantic firestorm in 1949, when her extramarital affair with Italian director Roberto Rossellini became international news. Revered for her wholesome roles in classics like Casablanca and Gaslight, Bergman shocked fans and industry insiders when word leaked that she was pregnant with Rossellini's child while still married to Swedish neurosurgeon Petter Lindström. Media outlets, from the Los Angeles Times to the Italian press, followed the story with feverish intensity. In the United States, Bergman's image underwent a dramatic shift, with some U.S. senators even denouncing her on the Senate floor as immoral, according to a 1949 transcript in the Congressional Record. In an era when moral decency clauses were commonplace in studio contracts, Bergman's personal choices threatened her standing in Hollywood. Her role in Rossellini's Stromboli garnered more headlines for its behind-the-scenes romance than its cinematic merits. Documents from RKO Pictures indicate that negotiations were cut short for future collaborations due to public backlash. Nonetheless, Bergman proceeded to divorce Lindstrom and marry Rossellini, an act that led to a temporary exile from mainstream Hollywood. She would eventually return triumphantly, even winning an Academy Award for Anastasia. But her reputation forever carried the mark of controversy. As film historians like David Thompson and Janine Bassinger have noted, the Bergman-Rossellini scandal remains a watershed moment, illustrating how personal life revelations could decisively alter the trajectory of even the most critically acclaimed stars. 8. Judy Garland's addiction. Even the brightest talents can bear hidden burdens, and Judy Garland's life was a testament to that harsh reality. Best remembered for her performance as Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz, Garland was thrust into stardom at an early age. Studio-imposed demands became a relentless force. According to various MGM production notes, Garland was often provided stimulants to maintain high energy on set, followed by sleeping pills to ensure she could rest between film shoots. These practices occurred from her teenage years, which led to a long-term barbiturate and amphetamine dependency. Biographers Gerald Clark and Ann Edwards both chronicled how studio executives carefully shielded the public from Garland's increasingly erratic behavior, fueling press releases that painted her as an overworked but determined star. Production costs soared on films like Meet Me in St. Louis and The Pirate due to her unpredictable absences. Hollywood gossip columns sometimes hinted at health issues, yet the extent of her struggles was buried beneath a wave of cheerful publicity stills. By the mid-1950s, Garland's addiction and related mental health problems became more difficult to obscure. Documents from MGM's internal communications reveal multiple attempts to rehabilitate her image, including rushed hospital stays and carefully orchestrated comebacks, such as her legendary 1951 concert run at the London Palladium. Although fans continued to adore her for her extraordinary vocal talent and heartfelt performances, the toll on Garland's life was all too real. Years later, her personal battles became emblematic of the darker side of Hollywood's demands on child stars. Charlie Chaplin's paternity suit, 1943. In 1943, Hollywood headlines took an unexpected turn when comedic icon Charlie Chaplin faced a paternity suit filed by aspiring actress Joan Barry. Renowned for creating the unforgettable Little Tramp, Chaplin suddenly found himself on trial in a case that blurred the boundaries between celebrity and scandal. Court records in Los Angeles show that Chaplin vehemently denied fathering Barry's child, citing blood tests as conclusive proof of his innocence. However, in a quirk of California law at the time, these tests were deemed inadmissible, leaving the jury to base its decision on circumstantial evidence and witness testimonies. Modern analyses published in the American Journal of Legal History reveal that Chaplin's perceived un-American political leanings, he openly criticized nationalism, may have predisposed certain factions against him. Meanwhile, the press had a field day, chronicling every courtroom exchange, with Chaplin's personal life dissected in front of an eager readership. Ultimately, the jury ruled against him, saddling him with child support payments and igniting a wave of anti-Chaplin sentiment. According to biographer David Robinson, the controversy led to heightened FBI interest in Chaplin's activities, culminating in further scrutiny of his political beliefs. This tarnished reputation contributed to Chaplin's decision to leave the United States permanently in 1952, following a trip to England that turned into self-imposed exile when U.S. authorities revoked his re-entry permit. The paternity suit thus stands as a pivotal event, demonstrating how public perception and legal technicalities combine to redefine Chaplin's standing in American pop culture. 10. Robert Mitchum's marijuana arrest, 1948. Robert Mitchum's brooding screen persona made him a popular star in film noir classics like Out of the Past. But in 1948, he found himself playing a very different role: defendant in a high-profile marijuana bust. Acting on a tip, Los Angeles narcotics officers raided a bungalow in Laurel Canyon, arresting Mitchum alongside actress Lila Leeds. Mug shots and front-page headlines followed, with the Los Angeles Evening Herald and Express calling the case a black mark on Hollywood's moral standing. According to court records, Mitchum entered a guilty plea, expecting leniency, but he was sentenced to 60 days in jail, along with probation. The studios braced for fallout, and RKO, where Mitchum was under contract, took steps to manage the crisis. Internal memos detail how the studio's publicity department scrambled to recast Mitchum's image from wayward star to repentant offender, hoping the public would eventually forgive him. He served his sentence at the Los Angeles County Honor Farm, making tabloid headlines when he reportedly continued to receive fan mail by the sackful. Mitchum's post-incarceration interviews, where he candidly referred to his time behind bars as like Palm Springs, but without the riffraff, added fuel to the scandal. However, in a surprising twist, his popularity remained largely intact, and by 1951, the conviction was overturned, and the arrest declared a frame-up by the original police officer. Mitchum's arrest is frequently cited by historians as a turning point in Hollywood's confrontation with use, both a sign of the legal system's growing war on narcotics and a precursor to the more turbulent celebrity scandals of later decades. 11. Elizabeth Taylor and Eddie Fisher's affair, 1958. Love triangles have long captured public attention, and few were more sensational than Elizabeth Taylor's affair with singer Eddie Fisher in 1958. Riding high on her success from films such as Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, Taylor found herself widowed after the tragic death of her third husband, Mike Todd, in a plane crash earlier that same year. Seeking comfort, she grew close to Todd's best friend, Eddie Fisher, who happened to be married to America's sweetheart, Debbie Reynolds. Tabloids like Modern Screen and Photoplay rushed to document every detail, branding Taylor a homewrecker and Fisher an unfaithful husband. Public sympathy initially favored Reynolds, whose wholesome persona clashed starkly with the drama surrounding Taylor. Fisher's record sales plummeted, and sponsors for his TV show distanced themselves from the scandal. According to Susan Strasberg's autobiography, behind-the-scenes tensions ran high, with Hollywood parties divided over who was at fault. Yet while public opinion condemned the couple, curiosity and fascination grew in equal measure. Taylor married Fisher in 1959, but their union was short-lived. She famously left him for actor Richard Burton a few years later, propelling another wave of press scrutiny. Despite the personal turmoil, Taylor continued to shine professionally, soon after starring in the epic Cleopatra. Eddie Fisher, however, never fully regained the popularity he enjoyed before the scandal. In hindsight, film historians often cite this affair as a pivot point in how Hollywood gossip shifted from discreet rumor to front-page event, foreshadowing the celebrity culture that thrives today. Paul Bern's mysterious death, 1932. In late 1932, Hollywood was shaken by the sudden death of Paul Bern, a prominent MGM producer and the husband of starlet Jean Harlow. On September 5th, Bern was discovered dead in his Beverly Hills home with a single gunshot wound to the head. Early newspaper coverage, including an initial report in the Los Angeles Examiner, with a cryptic note found at the scene suggesting marital discord. However, multiple sources, including the recollections of actress Helen Twelvetrees, hinted at complications surrounding Bern's former common-law wife, Dorothy Millette, who reportedly leapt to her death from a ferry just 2 days after Bern's demise. MGM quickly intervened, dispatching their fixer, Howard Strickling, to manage the press and remove potentially damaging evidence from the crime scene. Internal studio memos indicate urgent directives to shield Harlow from scandal, capitalizing on her huge box office draw. Investigative journalists, such as Samuel Marks in his book Deadly Illusions, questioned the timeline of events and pointed to inconsistent statements from house staff. Additional intrigue arose when neighbors claimed to have heard 2 gunshots on the night of Bern's death, further fueling speculation. Harlow, for her part, remained mostly silent about the incident, adhering to the studio's carefully curated story. The swirl of allegations never fully dissipated, marking Bern's death as one of Hollywood's great enigmas, an event that tarnished the industry's veneer of glamour with a lingering aura of tragedy and suspicion. 13. Barbara Payton's public downfall. Hollywood is no stranger to tales of meteoric rise and equally swift collapse, and Barbara Payton's story may be one of the most harrowing. Rising to prominence in the early 1950s, Payton secured a contract with Universal International and briefly dazzled in films like Bride of the Gorilla. Yet her personal entanglements grabbed even more attention. She became embroiled in a notorious love triangle with actors Franchot Tone and Tom Neal, culminating in a vicious brawl that left Tone hospitalized with severe injuries. 1951 police reports indicate that Neal violently attacked Tone outside Payton's apartment, shattering Tone's cheekbone and nose. Press outlets like The Hollywood Reporter seized upon each lurid detail, transforming the actors' rivalry into front-page news. Despite the negative coverage, Payton initially attempted to maintain her career, even marrying Tone in a high-profile wedding. But her personal life spiraled further, and within weeks she was photographed back in Neal's company, fueling further scorn. Studio executives, worried about their bottom line, severed contracts and opportunities dried up. Over the following years, Payton's struggles with alcoholism and financial instability became widely documented in tabloid features. By the late 1950s, she had descended into a life of prostitution and transient living, a far cry from her glamorous start. In her self-published memoir, I Am Not Ashamed, Payton recounted her tragic journey with startling candor. Although her story is less told than other Hollywood scandals, it remains a poignant illustration of how quickly fame can slip into infamy when personal battles overshadow professional achievements. 14. Mae West's obscenity charges. 1927. Before Mae West was known as Hollywood's queen of double entendres, she was lighting up the New York theater scene with provocative plays that pushed social boundaries. In 1927, while starring in and producing the play Sex, West found herself at the center of a legal storm. Censors and moral guardians labeled the production obscene, prompting a police raid that resulted in West's arrest alongside her cast. Contemporary news reports, including those from the New York World, describe how the trial became a spectacle, drawing large crowds eager to see the famed playwright defend her art. Legal documents reveal that West was fined $500 and sentenced to 10 days in jail, though she only served 8 with time off for good behavior. The resulting headlines catapulted her into the national spotlight, proving that controversy could act as an unconventional springboard to fame. Over the ensuing years, her comedic genius, characterized by witty one-liners and brazen confidence, clashed repeatedly with censors, especially when she moved to Hollywood. Internal studio correspondence from Paramount shows frequent disputes with the Production Code Administration over West's scripts, many of which were toned down before release. Nevertheless, her films, such as She Done Him Wrong and I'm No Angel, became box office triumphs, solidifying her status as an icon of unapologetic sexuality. Though her arrest was meant to silence her work, it inadvertently fueled the public's fascination, demonstrating how a run-in with the law could transform a stage actress into a national phenomenon. Tallulah Bankhead's open bisexuality. Few figures in the golden era radiated confidence and candor like Tallulah Bankhead, an actress and socialite who thumbed her nose at convention. Born into a prominent political family in Alabama, Bankhead quickly ascended the stage and screen ranks, earning acclaim for her sultry voice and magnetic presence. Yet by the mid-1930s, her openly bisexual lifestyle drew attention in a film industry deeply invested in preserving a veneer of heterosexual normalcy. Gossip columns of the era, particularly the sensational Whisper magazine, hinted at her relationships with both men and women, a detail that studios tried to bury. Memos housed in the Paramount archives indicate that producers worried Bankhead's uninhibited living could spawn negative publicity, urging her to maintain a demure public persona. However, Bankhead's defiance won out. On radio and in interviews, she unashamedly tackled taboo topics, once jokingly referring to herself as ambisextrous. Figures like playwright Tennessee Williams and author Truman Capote celebrated her frankness, often citing Bankhead as the life of every social gathering they attended. Yet the industry itself remained conflicted, rewarding her performances in films like Lifeboat, while quietly discouraging her from flouting conservative moral codes. By the 1940s, certain directors and producers became hesitant to cast her in leading roles, fearing blowback from religious groups. Despite these obstacles, Bankhead continued to enthrall the public with her brazen wit and mesmerizing stage presence, leaving a legacy that challenged Hollywood's rigid norms. Her story stands out as a prime example of how personal identity could collide with the era's narrowly defined expectations. 16. Ramon Novarro's murder, 1968. Even though Ramon Novarro found fame in the silent film era, his shocking death in 1968 reignited public fascination with Hollywood's clandestine underworld. A one-time rival to Rudolph Valentino, Novarro starred in films like Ben-Hur, A Tale of the Christ, captivating audiences with his suave screen presence. However, after Sound Pictures took over, his career waned, and he retreated into a quieter existence. On October 30th, 1968, that seclusion was shattered. Novarro was found brutally murdered in his North Hollywood home. Court transcripts from the ensuing trial tell a grim story. Two brothers, Paul and Tom Ferguson, were charged with torturing Novarro, allegedly believing he kept large sums of cash on the premises. Sensationalist tabloids zeroed in on Novarro's sexuality and the circumstances that led the assailants into his residence, fueling a firestorm of lurid speculation. According to a Variety news brief from the time, the Ferguson brothers claimed they had no intention of committing murder, but a violent confrontation escalated, resulting in Novarro's death by asphyxiation. Despite the brutality of the crime, many in the press seemed more intrigued by the victim's private life than by the killer's culpability. The trial concluded with both brothers receiving lengthy prison sentences, but the scandal endured, highlighting Hollywood's fraught relationship with homosexuality. Years later, investigative pieces by film historians noted how Novarro's tragic end overshadowed his cinematic contributions, reducing him to a cautionary footnote. The case remains a stark reminder that beneath Tinseltown's gilded surfaces, danger could lurk in the shadows. 17. Marilyn Monroe's alleged affair's blonde bombshell. Marilyn Monroe cultivated an image of flirtatious vulnerability, yet behind that carefully managed persona lay rumors of high-profile liaisons. Throughout the 1950s, magazines like Confidential and Silver Screen thrived on innuendo, suggesting Monroe had connections to influential men, from baseball legend Joe DiMaggio, whom she married in 1954, to President John F. Kennedy and his brother Robert. While conclusive evidence of an affair with the Kennedys remains elusive, numerous biographers, including Donald Spoto in Marilyn Monroe, the biography, point to personal notes and second-hand accounts as circumstantial proof. These tales escalated after Monroe's untimely death in 1962, spawning conspiracy theories that suggested her demise was linked to powerful political figures. FBI files, partially declassified in the late 1980s, documented heightened surveillance of Monroe due to her associations with leftist individuals, though the files stop short of confirming any presidential romance. Still, the potential for scandal was enough to keep tabloids running sensational headlines. Studio executives at 20th Century Fox were particularly nervous about these stories, especially during the filming of Something's Got to Give, her final, unfinished project. Internal memos noted concerns that negative publicity could jeopardize the film's release and cut short Monroe's planned comeback. In reality, her personal life remained complex, marked by multiple marriages and a desire for genuine emotional connection. Despite the swirl of rumor and speculation, Monroe's enduring legacy as an icon of glamour and tragedy persists, overshadowing any single alleged affair in the collective cultural memory of Hollywood's golden age. Dorothy Dandridge's Confidential magazine lawsuit, 1957. Dorothy Dandridge broke barriers as the first African-American nominee for a Best Actress Oscar for her role in Carmen Jones. Yet, her accomplishments were overshadowed in 1957 when Confidential magazine ran a salacious story accusing her of improper behavior with white band members in a hotel room. The publication, known for its scandalous headlines, had already faced legal challenges from other celebrities. Dandridge joined the fray, filing a libel lawsuit to defend her reputation. Court records from Los Angeles County reveal how her legal team dissected Confidential's allegations, presenting affidavits and testimonies that refuted every claim. Celebrity attorney Jerry Giesler, who had represented other Hollywood stars, took the case, emphasizing the magazine's history of fabricating stories to boost circulation. Despite Dandridge's determination, the legal battle was emotionally draining, underscoring the pervasive racial prejudices and double standards she encountered. Confidential settlements were reportedly reached behind closed doors, with the magazine ultimately retracting its story. While Dandridge succeeded in clearing her name, the strain of negative publicity contributed to career setbacks, as studios remained cautious about investing in non-white actors and those tangled in controversy. In a 1958 Ebony magazine interview, Dandridge spoke about the emotional toll, lamenting how gossip columns could tarnish a performer's standing with minimal effort. Although she continued to showcase her considerable talents on stage and in select film roles, the Confidential lawsuit highlighted the precarious balance of fame, race, and reputation in 1950s Hollywood, an environment in which vindication did not necessarily guarantee lasting professional security. 19. Jean Harlow's relationship with abusive husband. Jean Harlow, often lauded as the blonde bombshell, exuded a magnetic allure in films such as Red Dust and Bombshell. Yet behind her radiant smile, she endured a tumultuous marriage to MGM executive Paul Bern, who, according to various contemporaneous accounts, subjected her to emotional strain and possible physical mistreatment. Studio press releases depicted their union as a picture-perfect Hollywood romance, but private correspondence among MGM insiders, as cited by biographer David Sten, reveals a more troubling narrative. Married in July 1932, the couple's relationship deteriorated within weeks. Some sources suggest that Bern struggled with impotence, a condition allegedly exacerbating his volatile temper. Harlow was said to have confided in close friends about Bern's controlling behavior, though such revelations were tightly suppressed by MGM's publicity machine. This dark episode took an even more dramatic turn when Bern died under mysterious circumstances just 2 months into the marriage. Yet speculation abounded regarding the exact cause of his death and the role Harlow may have played, rumors fueled by conflicting police reports and the sudden involvement of the studio's fixers. Despite the trauma, Harlow continued her ascent, starring in a string of successful films that further cemented her legendary status. However, the intense scrutiny surrounding Bern's demise and the whispered accounts of domestic abuse left an indelible mark on her public image. In the annals of Hollywood's golden era, their ill-fated marriage remains a haunting example of private turmoil overshadowed by studio spin. 20th. Howard Hughes's affairs and eccentricities. Even among the pantheon of larger-than-life Hollywood personalities, Howard Hughes stands out for his remarkable blend of innovation and idiosyncrasy. A wealthy aviation pioneer, film producer, and occasional director, Hughes quickly became known for his dalliances with prominent actresses, ranging from Katharine Hepburn to Ava Gardner. Studio gossip logs from the 1930s and 1940s detail how Hughes used his vast fortune to manipulate the careers of his love interests, financing films that showcased their talents while also meddling in their personal lives. Biographers like Donald L. Bartlett and James B. Steele note Hughes's obsessive tendencies, especially evident in his rigorous control over the final cut of films such as The Outlaw, which famously tested censorship standards with Jane Russell's revealing wardrobe. As the years progressed, Hughes's eccentricities became more pronounced. Hollywood columnists reported rumors of him roaming the streets in disguise, compulsively re-washing his hands, and confining himself for months inside dark screening rooms. The 1950s and 1960s saw Hughes withdraw from public life entirely, orchestrating major business deals from the penthouse of the Desert Inn in Las Vegas, where he shuttered the top floors for his exclusive use. His increasingly erratic behavior led to a swirl of speculation about mental health issues, yet he continued to invest heavily in film and aviation, demonstrating that genius and eccentricity often walked hand in hand. Though he ultimately died in seclusion in 1976, Hughes's impact on Hollywood's golden era endures, serving as a testament to how vast resources and raw ambition shape both personal narratives and entire industries.